I'm Meagan Corrado. I'm a doctor of social work. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker and the creator of the Stories Trauma Narrative Intervention. I teach as a full-time faculty member at Bryn Mawr College, and I'm also a trauma survivor. It's interesting to reflect on my journey to becoming trauma informed. So I'm not quite sure when the journey began. I think it started around the time around my own childhood when I actually experienced trauma. I didn't know that it was considered to be trauma initially, but I later learned in my undergraduate studies, my graduate studies, and ultimately my doctoral studies, I came to understand what trauma is, how it impacts people. I also became a clinician to help other people heal from their trauma. And in the process of me studying trauma academically and also working with people clinically, I also realized that I was a trauma survivor. So when I think about my journey to becoming trauma informed, I think of it as I don't necessarily think of it as something that you can finally finish. I think that it's this constant journey to becoming trauma informed, and I don't know that we can always identify where that journey begins or when it ends, because I believe that it's this constantly evolving process. I don't think that we can exist as human beings in today's world without having a foundational understanding of what trauma is and who trauma impacts. There are so many people who are experiencing various forms of trauma, from domestic violence to assault to natural disasters to acts of terrorism. I don't know that we can actually be effective in any career without actually understanding what it means to be trauma informed and to understand how trauma impacts not only the individuals that we encounter, but our families, ourselves, and also the systems that we work in as well. So I became involved with CTIPP about a year and a half ago. I'm now also the chair of the communications committee. I became involved because I really believe in the importance of us collectively coming together to advocate for trauma-informed policies and practices. So a lot of us are engaged in trauma-informed work in different systems in different ways. So often we're focused on our individual work, and what we're doing to influence the people that are in our sphere of influence. But it's really important for us to break down some of the silos, to join together with other people that are also engaging in trauma-informed work, because there's absolutely power in numbers, and we can definitely make a bigger impact if we collectively unite in order to address this huge public health crisis. In my work with CTIPP, I've had the opportunity to interact with trauma experts and people who are influencing trauma-informed policies and practices all throughout the nation. What I have seen is just an incredible amount of passion amongst the board members and also amongst the people that partner with us. I've also seen a lot of diversity. Diversity as far as the systems that we are supporting people in, and also the different ways that we can engage in trauma-informed advocacy. So as a clinician, I've worked with individuals, families, and communities who've experienced trauma. And it's funny because when I first became a clinician, I said that I was never going to become involved in macro practice. It's really interesting though, because now my work with individuals and families has informed my advocacy for those families. And I would really say, I didn't understand this at first, but our local, our state, our federal policies are really important in shaping our individual work and in our work with families. And I think that it's great for people to be able to bring their experiences on the ground, to be able to inform policies at every level. That makes the policy so much more meaningful, so much more applicable and real. And I think that it's really important for us to engage not only in clinical work, but also in advocacy so that we can support in changing some of the structural challenges that inhibit people from really healing from the trauma that they've experienced. CTIPP's work is really incredibly important because oftentimes we're operating as individual systems, as individual organizations, as individual activists, and the collective work that we do can give a voice to policies and practices that can impact a variety of communities nationwide. I really feel that that's important for us to engage in this collective activism. Something that trauma does is that it fragments, and oftentimes our systems are also fragmented as well. And it's really important for us societally, as we tackle trauma, to really identify integrated ways and organized ways that we can come together, that we can create a new narrative, but that we can create a collective narrative. One of the things that CTIPP could really use is manpower and also resources. So we are a volunteer-based organization. All of us have full-time jobs working in various capacities, and it would be really great for us to be able to leverage the support of volunteers to be able to further our work, and also we could absolutely use additional resources. So if you're able to make a donation, that would be greatly appreciated. And it can really support us in expanding our scope. We have so many ideas, so many ways that we can promote trauma-informed policies and practices, but without the time, the manpower, and the money to be able to do it, we're not necessarily able to fully engage in all the different activities that we want to be able to engage in. So trauma is a public health crisis. It's impacting people regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of socioeconomic status. And it's really our responsibility to take an active role in understanding trauma and supporting people in healing from trauma. Something that I often tell other people when I'm speaking is so often we're sitting back waiting for someone else to come along and fix the societal problem. But to be honest, if we sit around and we wait for other people to address the impact of trauma, it's never going to happen. We are the change. We are the ones that have to be actively involved in addressing this public health crisis, because if we don't, no one else is going to.